The morning sun filtered through mist that clung to the temple walls, painting shadows that seemed alive with unease. The seeker sat in silence, his breath uneven, as if even the air resisted peace. The teacher's voice cut sharply through the stillness. "Ethan, you have lost the path." Ethan's heart pounded, the words carving into him like a blade. He wanted to protest, to defend his devotion, but his throat tightened. The fellow disciple glanced at him with pity, while the skeptic smirked faintly. Ethan thought, how could the teacher say this after years of discipline? His mind spiraled as the teacher's eyes remained calm, unwavering. "A storm within you brews louder than your silence," the teacher added. Ethan clenched his fists, a quiet desperation rising. The temple bells rang in the distance, echoing like a warning. Ethan felt the ground tilt beneath his faith, and for the first time, he doubted not the path but himself. Ethan stumbled outside, the temple's heavy silence still pressing on his chest. The cold morning air struck his skin like a reprimand, sharp and unforgiving. He whispered to himself, "Lost, after years of devotion." His voice trembled. The garden stretched before him, dew shimmering on each blade of grass. He felt small, fragile against the vast stillness of nature. The teacher's words repeated in his mind, echoing louder than the rustling leaves. Ethan dropped to his knees near the stone path, his breath clouding in the air. The fellow disciple appeared briefly, her gaze calm yet unreadable, then vanished back into the hall. Alone, Ethan's heart pounded, each beat a question he could not answer. He wanted to escape the weight pressing on him, yet he knew he carried the storm within. The skeptic approached quietly, his presence unsettling in the fragile stillness. "So, the teacher has finally seen through your facade," he said with a thin smile. Ethan lifted his head, anger and shame wrestling in his eyes. He wanted to deny it, but his silence betrayed him. The skeptic leaned against a stone lantern, his arms folded, his gaze sharp. "Zen is a game for dreamers," he continued. "You've chased nothing but shadows." Ethan's breath quickened, his fists tightening again. "You don't understand," Ethan muttered, though his voice carried little strength. The skeptic shrugged. "Perhaps I understand more than you think." The words hung heavy, twisting deeper into Ethan's wound. The garden seemed colder, the morning light harsher, as Ethan realized his turmoil was now exposed for all to see. Later, Ethan wandered to the koi pond, its surface trembling with ripples from a falling leaf. He gazed at his reflection, broken by the water's shifting surface. His face looked unfamiliar, as though belonging to a stranger. The teacher's words returned, "A storm within you brews louder than your silence." Ethan's chest tightened. The fellow disciple joined him, her presence soft but steady. She knelt beside him, her voice gentle. "The teacher does not condemn you, Ethan. He shows you what already weighs upon you." Ethan shook his head, eyes fixed on the rippling reflection. "Then why does it feel like rejection?" he whispered. The fellow disciple sighed softly. "Perhaps rejection is what the storm makes you see." Her words drifted into the quiet air, carried away by the rippling pond. As dusk fell, the temple grounds bathed in amber light, long shadows stretching across the courtyard. Ethan stood alone, his robe heavy with damp from the evening air. The silent witness, an older disciple, swept the stones nearby in silence. Ethan watched him, sensing something unsettling yet soothing in his quiet presence. The broom brushed steadily against stone, each sound deliberate, unhurried. Ethan whispered, "Do you not question?" The silent witness gave no reply, his eyes steady, his body grounded in the moment. Ethan felt both mocked and comforted by that silence. The teacher's words, the skeptic's ridicule, and the fellow disciple's gentleness clashed within him. Yet the quiet sweeping carved a strange stillness into the noise of his mind. For a fleeting moment, he envied that silence more than any wisdom spoken. The night fell heavy over the temple, lanterns glowing faintly against the chill air. Ethan sat alone in the meditation hall, his posture rigid, his breath shallow. He tried to focus on silence, Yet the teacher's words echoed louder than any mantra. You have lost the path. His mind resisted, each repetition carving deeper into his heart. He closed his eyes tightly, as if shutting out the world could silence the storm. A single candle flickered before him, its flame bending with the draft. Ethan whispered, "If not this, then what is left?" His voice sounded foreign, like the plea of a stranger. He longed for stillness but found only restlessness. In the vast quiet, the weight of failure pressed harder, leaving him fragile, his spirit unraveling thread by thread in the dimly lit chamber. The teacher entered silently, his steps echoing softly on the wooden floor. Ethan did not open his eyes, but he felt the presence like a weight pressing down. The teacher stood behind him, his voice calm yet piercing. Discipline without surrender is only stubbornness. Ethan's eyes snapped open, his breath quickened. He turned slowly, gazing at the teacher's serene face. "I have given everything," Ethan said, his tone heavy with exhaustion. The teacher's gaze held no judgment, only stillness. "Everything except yourself," he replied. The words stung, wrapping around Ethan's chest like chains. He wanted to argue, but his voice faltered. The candlelight shimmered between them, shadows dancing across their faces as Ethan realized his struggle was not against the teacher, but against himself. Later, Ethan sat beneath a cherry blossom tree in the courtyard, its pale petals falling with the night breeze. He clenched a handful of blossoms, crushing them unconsciously as if their fragility mocked his own. The fellow disciple approached quietly, her steps soft against the stone path. She knelt beside him, her eyes gentle yet searching. "Ethan, peace will not be found in struggle," she said. He shook his head, his voice breaking. "Then why does it feel like drowning?" She touched the crushed petals in his palm, letting them fall gently to the ground. "Because you hold too tightly." Ethan's gaze followed the drifting petals, his chest heavy with despair. For the first time he felt the truth of her words pierce the armor of his pride. The skeptic appeared suddenly, leaning against the courtyard wall with a faint smirk. "How poetic," he said, his tone dripping with mockery. Ethan stiffened, turning sharply. The skeptic's eyes glinted with sharp amusement. "You cling to illusions, Ethan. Zen is a mask you wear to hide emptiness." Ethan's jaw tightened, his body trembling. "Better to search than surrender to emptiness," he snapped. The skeptic chuckled, folding his arms. "And yet here you are, drowning in your own silence." His words cut like a blade, each syllable deepening Ethan's wound. The fellow disciple lowered her gaze, refusing to respond. Ethan felt the weight of shame rise, his breath uneven, as though the world pressed against his chest, leaving no room to breathe. Alone again, Ethan wandered into the darkened library, shelves lined with weathered scrolls and books. He traced his fingers across the spines, desperate for wisdom that could silence the storm. His breath echoed in the hollow chamber. He pulled out a scroll, its paper fragile. The ink faded, yet the words blurred before his eyes, meaningless against the chaos within him. He sank to the floor, the scroll slipping from his hands. He pressed his palms against his temples, whispering, "Why can't I find peace?" His voice trembled in the emptiness. The silence of the library pressed down, heavier than words, heavier than the teacher's lessons. For Ethan, the knowledge around him was endless, but none could quench the fire tearing through his heart. Morning light spilled into the training hall, illuminating the polished wooden floor. Ethan sat cross-legged as the teacher placed a small bowl of water before him. "Still it, without spilling a drop," the teacher instructed. Ethan's breath hitched, doubt tightening his chest. He closed his eyes, attempting to command stillness into his restless hands. The fellow disciple watched silently from the corner, her calm eyes reminding him of the peace he lacked. Ethan whispered, "I can do this," but his trembling fingers betrayed him. As he touched the bowl, ripples broke the surface, spilling drops onto the floor. His jaw clenched as frustration surged. The teacher's voice cut through the silence, calm but firm. "You must break before you can be whole." Ethan lowered his head, anger and shame twisting together, his faith shaking. The skeptic leaned casually against a pillar, smirk curling his lips as he watched Ethan's failure. "So much for discipline," he sneered. Ethan's face flushed, shame gnawing at his pride. "You speak without understanding," Ethan retorted, though his voice cracked. The skeptic's tone sharpened. "Understanding? I see a desperate man clinging to illusions." Ethan's fists tightened, his body trembling with suppressed rage. The teacher remained silent, his presence unshaken. Ethan felt cornered, torn between the teacher's cryptic calm and the skeptic's cruel truth. His breath quickened, the bowl of water trembling again beneath his hand. The fellow disciple rose slowly, stepping closer, her eyes steady but unspoken words heavy in the air. Ethan felt surrounded by judgment, each moment pressing him deeper into despair. Ethan left the hall in haste, storming into the temple courtyard where cherry blossoms scattered in the breeze. His chest heaved, anger burning through his composure. The silent witness swept quietly nearby, his broom gliding across stone with unbroken rhythm. Ethan glared at him, his voice strained. "Do you see me breaking?" The silent witness did not look up, his silence louder than words. The broom's steady rhythm felt like mockery, deepening Ethan's turmoil. "Say something," Ethan shouted, but no answer came. His rage spilled into the stillness, his fists shaking. The blossoms continued to fall, their fragile descent a cruel contrast to the storm inside him. Ethan collapsed onto the stone steps, the weight of silence suffocating, his mind screaming against the world and himself. By afternoon, Ethan sat at the edge of the koi pond, the rippling water mirroring his fractured thoughts. The catalyst appeared suddenly, a wanderer draped in travel-worn robes, eyes sharp with mystery. He crouched beside Ethan, lifting a pebble. With a flick of his fingers, he tossed it into the pond. "What you resist ripples louder," he said cryptically. Ethan frowned, his voice heavy. "What does that mean?" The catalyst smiled faintly, eyes reflecting the water's shimmer. "The storm you fight is of your own making." Ethan clenched his jaw, torn between denial and desperate need for clarity. Before he could respond, the catalyst rose, already drifting away. "Look deeper, or remain blind." His presence faded as swiftly as it came, leaving Ethan trembling, more unsettled than before. That night, Ethan returned to the meditation hall, his body weary yet restless. Shadows stretched across the floor, lantern light flickering against the walls. He knelt again before the bowl, determined to conquer the storm within. His breath came fast, uneven. "I will not fail again," he whispered. But the more he tried to control his shaking, the more the water rippled. Sweat trickled down his brow as his body trembled. In frustration, he struck the bowl aside, water spilling across the floorboards. The teacher appeared silently at the doorway, his eyes steady. "Control is the chain that binds you," he said calmly. Ethan's chest heaved, rage and despair colliding. He fell forward, palms pressing into wet wood, his spirit unraveling, his storm consuming him whole. The dawn was pale and gray, the temple wrapped in mist. Ethan sat before the teacher again, his body slumped, spirit frayed. The teacher placed a mirror on the floor, its surface clouded by condensation. "What do you see?" he asked. Ethan stared at his reflection, broken by the misted glass. His voice cracked. "I see failure." The teacher shook his head gently. "You see only the story you cling to." Ethan's chest tightened, his anger dimmed by confusion. The teacher's voice lowered. "You are not broken, Ethan. You are bound by the illusion of perfection." The words pierced deeper than any scolding. For a moment, silence expanded in the hall, and Ethan felt something stir inside, like a veil lifting slightly, though the storm still raged. Ethan stumbled into the courtyard, shaken by the teacher's words. The cherry blossoms swirled gently in the breeze, falling across his shoulders. The fellow disciple approached, her steps slow and deliberate. "Why do you tremble?" she asked softly. Ethan's eyes welled with frustration. "Because nothing I do is enough." She touched his arm lightly, her eyes steady. Enough for whom? For the teacher, or for yourself? Her words struck him like cold water, leaving him speechless. He lowered his gaze, heart pounding with the realization that his striving was not for truth, but for approval. The blossoms fell faster, their fragile descent echoing his unraveling pride. Ethan whispered, "I don't know who I am without the chase." The fellow disciple's gaze softened. "Then perhaps that is where your path begins." That evening, Ethan wandered near the temple gates, where the skeptic waited with folded arms. His tone was sharp. "The teacher plays with riddles. You are lost in illusions." Ethan's voice rose, desperate. "Then tell me, what is real?" The skeptic smirked, his eyes cold. "Real is what you can grasp, what you can control." Ethan's chest burned, the words cutting into the doubt already festering. But suddenly, he heard his own voice whispering back, "Control is the chain that binds." The skeptic's smirk faltered, his eyes narrowing. The words were the teacher's, but now they rang from Ethan's own lips. A strange silence stretched between them, heavy and unresolved. Ethan felt a flicker of clarity, yet also fear. If control was illusion, what was left to hold on to? Later, Ethan sat by the koi pond, moonlight casting silver across the rippling water. The catalyst returned, his shadow long against the stones. He crouched beside Ethan, tossing another pebble into the pond. "You think awakening is a conquest?" he murmured. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then what is it?" The catalyst's eyes glimmered with mystery. "It is seeing the water was never restless. Only your gaze was." Ethan stared at the pond, ripples fading into stillness. His breath slowed as the truth unsettled him. The catalyst's voice grew faint. "The storm is not in the sky, it is in you." Ethan looked up, but the stranger was already gone, leaving silence heavy in the night air. For the first time, Ethan feared the storm was never outside his control. Near midnight, Ethan returned to the meditation hall, the mirror still resting on the floor. He knelt before it, the flicker of lanterns casting shifting shadows across his face. His reflection stared back, haunted but unbroken. "I am not failure," he whispered, his voice fragile but certain. The teacher appeared quietly, his expression steady. "At last you begin to see." Ethan's eyes filled with tears, his storm softening as truth seeped in. The mirror no longer showed failure, but a man searching for freedom beyond illusions. The teacher placed a hand on his shoulder. "The world outside was never your cage, it was the one within." Ethan bowed his head deeply, not in defeat but in surrender. For the first time, he felt the ground beneath him steady. The night was heavy with silence, stars hidden behind thick clouds. Ethan entered the meditation hall, his body trembling with exhaustion. The overturned bowl still lay where he had struck it earlier, water stains darkening the wood. He fell to his knees, chest heaving, fists pounding the floor. His voice broke. "I cannot carry this anymore." The teacher's words echoed in memory. "You must break before you can be whole." Ethan's eyes stung with tears as the truth pressed in. He was not losing his path, he was losing his grip on illusion. His breath slowed, but sorrow surged, drowning him in waves. For the first time, Ethan no longer resisted. He bent forward, forehead touching the floor, his body collapsing in surrender. The silent witness entered quietly, broom resting at his side. He did not speak, only stood near Ethan, watching with steady eyes. Ethan lifted his head, face wet with tears, his voice hoarse. "How do you endure the silence?" The silent witness gave no reply, but his presence radiated calm. Ethan's shoulders shook, torn between despair and yearning for that serenity. He pressed his palms flat against the floor, whispering, "I want peace." His breath slowed, body heavy but still. The hall seemed to shift, lantern light softening, shadows no longer sharp but gentle. The silent witness resumed sweeping, the steady rhythm guiding Ethan's breath. For the first time, Ethan felt his storm weakening, not by force, but by allowing the silence to hold him. Hours passed and dawn broke with pale light spilling into the hall. Ethan still knelt, body heavy but heart quieter. The teacher appeared at the doorway, his steps unhurried. He looked at Ethan, not with judgment, but with calm acceptance. Ethan raised his head, voice trembling. "I have nothing left." The teacher's reply was gentle, "And nothing is where truth begins." Ethan's tears fell freely, but with them came release. The teacher approached, kneeling beside him, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. Ethan closed his eyes, the storm inside finally easing. The weight he had carried dissolved like mist in sunlight. For the first time, he felt not broken, but empty. And in that emptiness, a strange fullness bloomed, steady and profound. Later that morning, Ethan walked into the temple garden, the world around him bathed in fresh light. Cherry blossoms drifted slowly in the breeze, dew glistening on the grass. The skeptic waited, his expression sharp, but when he saw Ethan's calm face, his smirk faltered. Ethan stopped, his voice steady. "You were right about one thing. Control is illusion." The skeptic frowned, arms folded tighter. "And what has that given you?" Ethan's eyes softened. "Peace." The word hung in the air, carried by the rustling leaves. The skeptic looked away, unsettled by the clarity before him. Ethan no longer sought to win the exchange. The blossoms continued to fall, and for the first time, Ethan did not resist their fleeting descent. By midday, Ethan sat once more at the koi pond, the water calm and glass-like beneath the sun. The fellow disciple joined him, kneeling silently at his side. He turned to her, voice quiet but steady. "I am no longer searching for perfection." Her eyes warmed, a gentle smile softening her face. "Then you are closer to truth than you realize." Ethan gazed at the pond, his reflection no longer fractured, but whole. The ripples that once disturbed him now shimmered with light. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply. The storm inside dissolved into stillness. The air was filled with birdsong, each note clear and unforced. Ethan whispered to himself, peace was always here. The words did not feel borrowed, they felt his own. The morning sun rose over the temple grounds, its light soft and golden, casting warmth across the stones. Ethan walked slowly through the courtyard, no longer burdened by haste. His steps matched the rhythm of the rustling leaves. The air was cool, carrying the scent of dew and blossoms. For the first time, he noticed the birdsong clearly, each note sharp and alive. He breathed deeply, his chest no longer heavy, his body no longer trembling. The storm inside him had quieted into a still lake. He whispered, peace is not found, it is revealed. His words carried no desperation, only quiet truth. The teacher observed from afar, a faint smile softening his face. The silence was no longer weight but a companion, guiding Ethan's every step. By mid-morning, Ethan paused at the koi pond, watching the water shimmer under sunlight. The fellow disciple joined him quietly, kneeling by his side. She smiled gently, her voice low. You are lighter. Ethan nodded, eyes reflecting calm waters. Because I am no longer holding what was never mine. She reached out, brushing a petal from the pond's surface. The storm passes when we stop clinging. Ethan's gaze softened as he watched ripples fade into stillness. He no longer feared their movement, for he saw beauty in their fading circles. The silence between them was gentle, not heavy. For the first time, Ethan felt kinship, not comparison, with her peace. His voice trembled, not with fear but gratitude. Thank you for showing me what patience looks like. Ethan walked toward the temple gates where the skeptic lingered, arms folded. Their eyes met, and silence stretched between them. The skeptic's voice was sharp. So, you found your grand revelation? Ethan shook his head slowly, expression calm. I found nothing. And in nothing, I found peace. The skeptic's smirk wavered, replaced by something uncertain. He turned his gaze aside, unsettled. Ethan stepped closer, his voice steady. You fight the same storm I once did. For a moment, the skeptic's eyes flickered with hidden pain, quickly buried beneath his hardened mask. Ethan did not press, only bowed his head slightly. "May you find stillness when you are ready." The skeptic remained silent, but his composure cracked, revealing doubt he could no longer hide. That afternoon, Ethan sat beneath the cherry blossom tree, petals drifting gently onto his lap. The silent witness swept nearby, his broom brushing stones in steady rhythm. Ethan closed his eyes, his breath rising and falling in harmony with the sound. "Your silence is not empty," he murmured. The silent witness glanced briefly but said nothing, his expression unchanged. Yet Ethan no longer sought words from him, for he now understood. Presence was the lesson, and silence the teaching. A petal landed in Ethan's open palm, trembling in the breeze. He smiled faintly, allowing it to drift away. The weight of striving was gone, replaced by quiet acceptance. For the first time, Ethan did not resist impermanence, he welcomed it. His storm had become a breeze. As evening fell, the temple bells rang, their sound resonant and deep. Ethan walked slowly across the courtyard, golden light stretching shadows long behind him. The teacher stood at the temple steps, his face illuminated by fading sunlight. Ethan approached, bowing deeply. "I understand now. Freedom is not chasing, it is being." The teacher nodded, eyes shining with quiet pride. "Then your journey begins." Ethan lifted his gaze, a serene strength glowing in his eyes. He no longer clung to approval, no longer feared imperfection. The storm that once consumed him was now only memory, softened into wisdom. The air was cool, carrying the sound of bells into the distance. Ethan breathed deeply, feeling each moment whole, complete, and enough. The sun dipped low, painting the temple sky in shades of crimson and gold. Ethan walked slowly through the courtyard, each step grounded, no longer driven by haste. His eyes lingered on the blossoms drifting across the stones, no longer symbols of fragility, but of freedom. He breathed deeply, the cool air steady in his chest. The teacher watched silently from the temple steps, his gaze calm and approving. Ethan bowed slightly as he passed, not out of duty but gratitude. His heart was light, unbound by illusions of failure or perfection. The storm within had dissolved, leaving only clarity. For the first time, Ethan walked not toward an answer but into the fullness of the moment. His silence was no longer struggle but peace. Ethan stood at the koi pond, moonlight beginning to touch its surface as twilight settled. He gazed at his reflection, unbroken, shimmering with silver light. For the first time, he did not see failure staring back. He saw himself whole. His breath slowed, his lips forming a faint smile. The fellow disciple approached, kneeling quietly beside him. She did not speak, but her presence carried warmth. Ethan whispered softly. The water was always still. His words echoed gently across the pond, blending with the soft ripple of koi beneath the surface. The disciple smiled, eyes filled with quiet pride. Ethan lowered his gaze again, not seeking answers, but embracing the reflection as it was, fleeting, imperfect, complete. The skeptic appeared near the gate, arms folded, his face carrying its familiar hardness. Yet when his eyes met Ethan's, the smirk did not come. Instead, he paused, words caught in his throat. Ethan approached, his voice steady. "Peace is not absence of struggle, it is the stillness beneath it." The skeptic's expression flickered with conflict, as though his armor cracked. He looked away, unable to speak. Ethan bowed slightly, not as surrender, but as compassion. He turned back toward the courtyard, leaving the skeptic standing in silence. For the first time, the skeptic did not mock, and in his silence was a seed of doubt, or perhaps a beginning. Ethan did not wait for an answer. The stillness was enough. Ethan sat beneath the cherry blossom tree, the ground beneath him littered with fallen petals. The silent witness swept nearby, his broom moving with unbroken rhythm. Ethan opened his hand, catching a single petal, watching it tremble. He smiled faintly, releasing it back into the breeze. "Impermanence is not loss," he whispered, "it is freedom." The silent witness paused, glancing once toward him, eyes calm and unreadable. Then he resumed sweeping, rhythm steady as always. Ethan's chest felt lighter, his breath soft and deep. For the first time, silence felt complete, not empty. The storm was not erased but transformed, woven into the fabric of his stillness. He closed his eyes, surrendering fully to the moment. The world moved, and he remained at peace. At dawn, Ethan climbed the hill beyond the temple, the horizon glowing with the first light of day. He stood at the edge, gazing across valleys wrapped in mist, mountains stretching into the sky. The air was cool, carrying silence vast and eternal. He breathed deeply, arms at his sides, no longer burdened, no longer reaching. His voice was quiet but certain. "I am not lost, I am here." The words lingered in the air, blending with the sound of wind through grass. He closed his eyes, the warmth of the sun washing over his face. In that moment, there was no teacher, no disciple, no skeptic, no storm. There was only presence. The journey was not over, but he no longer chased it, he lived it.